Welcome into the PFF NFL podcast. Steve Palazzolo here with Sam Monson. Monday morning. Let's go, man.
Yes.
Yeah.
Go.
We have a big announcement. Let's start with the big announcement.
Okay.
PFF live in Indianapolis Thursday night. Is it the 27th?
Yes.
February 27th. 10 days from now. We're going to be live. Where? Tin Roof?
The Tin Roof in Indianapolis.
Oh, man. It's actually happening. They actually gave us a live show.
They did.
They agreed to it.
Yeah.
We're going to be live in Indianapolis that Thursday night, 7 p.m.
Apparently that's 36 South Pennsylvania Street, Indianapolis.
Yeah, you got to check it out. So if you guys are in and around Indianapolis or basically anywhere in the United States besides Alaska or Hawaii, you should probably just make your way there.
Why you got to be racist against
They can come down too.
whatever the opposite of the lower 48 is?
I mean, the contiguous.
Well, they always say lower, even though Hawaii's,
The most southern state.
Yeah.
Yeah. Let's not get into the geography stuff this week. We had,
Okay.
last week, we still haven't even settled the continent issue
pretty
last
sure we
week.
settled it.
But, the comment section was also torn.
Huh.
Anyway, so the show's live.
Yes.
You can come down from Canada, too. I mean, the trip from Canada is not that far.
It's probably closer than a lot of
Yeah,
states.
it's definitely closer. I mean, it's closer than, like, Washington
Right.
and Montana, places like that. So we're going to be there. We're working on the guest list. We've got some big names. We have some mediocre names, and we have some fallback names. Not going to lie. That's just what we're dealing with right now.
Which category do we fall into?
We're the fallback option. Like, worst case scenario, it's just you and me talking up there for 2 hours. Best case scenario, we've got some really good stuff planned.
Yes.
So it's going to be good. We root for best case scenario here. So go check it out. If you guys are making your way to the Combine, it's the Thursday night. I believe the workouts start on Thursday for one of the position groups. They run Thursday through Sunday this year. As far as the Combine goes, it's a big media event, so a lot of media will be there. Obviously, all the teams are there the entire week, so we're trying to get some very special guests for the show.
Mm-hmm. And everything is long over in terms of, actual things that people need to do. So this is only eating into drinking time, and there's drinks at the venue.
Yeah, and we already
You
have
might
a
as well
couple
drink there.
people confirmed to be there. A couple people. Mm-hmm. I appreciate the guy that has an exam and he sent in his girlfriend
Yes.
to represent, his
How many
relationship,
of your,
apparently.
How many of your 2 confirmed fans are going to be there?
I have no idea. Most of my fans are underage. I don't know if they can get in
Okay, that's
to the Tin Roof. I don't think the Tin Roof. I don't know. I'm sure you can get into the Tin Roof underage, right?
I haven't checked.
The restaurant and everything.
Yeah, it's like a bar and grill, right?
Right.
The
So you can
grill
get
bar.
in, just can't drink.
Legally.
So I think we'll have at least 3 or 4 people there.
3 or
That'd be
4?
great. Yeah.
Huh.
And then again, worst case scenario, PFF's bringing like 30 people to this thing, so we're going to have all of them there. Rick Drummond will be there. Neil will be there harassing us.
There's no way Rick's showing up to this.
There's beer there. Do you think are we going to bring Neil on stage for anything?
God, I hope not.
Are we going to have him pronounce names? We
Neil-
can't. Okay,
Neil
okay.
against you
maybe.
pronouncing names would be pretty.
Okay,
pretty
we have all
nice.
sorts of fun segments planned and potential. Let us know if you guys have any special guests that you really want us to procure.
Let us know.
Hashtag let us know.
Yeah.
So PFF Live, Thursday night, February 27th. Can't wait. We'll have some giveaways. We'll have some swag. PFF swag giveaways.
You're just all about making this as expensive as humanly possible.
I just thought of a great idea.
Yeah? What do you got?
One of our guys in the office has access to a T-shirt cannon.
He does.
I think, hold on, this needs to happen here.
I forgot that video existed.
Can you just keep the people busy while I type into the group that we need this to happen?
Okay, yeah. So there's a guy in the office, a video surface of somebody that looked remarkably like somebody in the office going out of his mind with a T-shirt cannon at the Reds game. Turns out it actually was the person from our office. He's one of the hype boys. I don't know what you call those people. The people with the T-shirt cannons firing stuff into the crowd at Great American Ballpark. What the hell is that stadium called?
Great American Ballpark.
There you go.
The GAB.
I knew that.
Yeah.
It's him. So, yeah, he doesn't have that, they don't let him take that home, right?
I imagine he has enough connections to, drive down the street, pick up the cannon for a couple hours.
But it's not like sitting in his, locker at home.
I don't know if you have to bring your own cannon. I assume it's the team's property.
Do you have to have a gun safe for your T-shirt cannon? Have you got to have it under lock and key?
Well, because Mark over there would have. I mean, he's allowed to.
He'd
use
have
a
an
T-shirt cannon.
appropriate place to store it.
Anthony says those bad boys are around $3,000.
Well, yeah, that's why we're not trying to buy one. We're trying to steal it.
We're going to borrow from the Reds.
Borrow.
Yeah, we'll bring it back.
Yeah, air quotes, borrow.
Anyway, we got a lot of great stuff planned February 27th. The rest of this show, we have some buyer beware free agents. Free agency's right around the corner. We're going to talk about them. And we're going to get into some of the stuff that you and I both wrote on the site this week. You gave the Patriots some very tangible solutions to their playmaker problem.
Yeah.
Some very specific trades, free agent possibilities, and draft possibilities.
Yes.
And I went and did a full in-depth breakdown on Joe Burrow, the presumed number 1 overall pick. So we'll get into all of that and much more because it's off-season mode, and we just never know where the podcast is going to go.
Yeah.
That's part of the beauty of the PFF NFL podcast.
It really is. It's a beautiful thing. So the Patriots are in this tough spot entirely of their own making, right? Because A, they kind of need to get Tom Brady back. And they've structured this thing in such a way that he's going to hit free agency unless they can extend him before free agency. And there's no way that's going to happen until he proves, or they prove to him, that they're capable of actually giving him some people who can get open, lest he look like crap like he did this season. For all of Brady's, what does he want? I don't think he wants to be made look like an idiot because the rest of the people around him can't hold up their end of the bargain.
Yeah.
So the Patriots need to find receiving help, and they need to do it pretty quickly in such a way that they can bring him back once they've done it. Now, their receiving core is such a mess, having sort of swung and missed on a few of those, high risk, low or high reward, high risk additions to the receiving core. So the Antonio Browns, the Josh Gordons, none of them worked out this time. The N'Keal Harris hasn't worked out yet. So they're left with Julian Edelman and a bunch of nobodies. So I think that they need to attack that position or the positions with receiver and tight end in multiple different ways. Like one guy is not fixing this problem. They need to actually attack multiple different spots. And I think the good news is that this is actually a good offseason to need that, right? Because I think there's a lot of guys potentially available. The first one is the Patriots have this history of not using the draft and actually trading commodity for proven NFL veterans already, right? Which puts some names on the table that wouldn't be there for most teams. So, number 23, would that get you a Stephon Diggs from the Minnesota Vikings? Now,
Mr. Cryptic Tweeter.
Diggs is interesting because this is like going on a year plus of him seemingly agitating for a move out of Minnesota, right? On the other hand, he might just be one of these people that's kind of a little bit crazy and tweets bullshit, right? And it's like, well, look, what is he trying to say here?
The Patriots already tried that with Antonio Brown.
Right. Like maybe he's just tweeting crap and this is what he does, right? At the very minimum, he isn't actively diffusing the idea that he wants out of Minnesota. At the maximum, he wants out of Minnesota, and therefore the Vikings might be willing to deal him.
By the way, the history of New England, I mean, they brought Randy Moss in via trade, Wes Welker through trade, both the same year, obviously.
Cooks.
And then Brandon Cooks. And but here's like the tricky part of the way the Patriots do business. On one hand, the Cooks deal was actually genius. They traded a first-round pick, got a year of service out of him, and then traded him for another first-round pick. So they basically got a free year of service out of him, exchanging, and getting their first-round pick back. On the other hand, there's always that risk with, okay, well, their receiving core since they got rid of him since 2018 and 19 has not been good, which was similar to earlier in Brady's career. They get rid of Deion Branch, and it kind of took them 2 years before they brought Moss and Welker in to kind of replace him. So they like to kind of play the value game, roll the dice.
I mean,
but then there's also points when they realize, hey, we really need to make a move here, and then bring people in. So they've kind of worked both ways on that. That's where I could see a guy like Diggs.
I mean, you could make the argument that the Patriots have basically just fundamentally undervalued the wide receiver position for a while now, and it's caught up with them.
Now, they're like, Tommy will carry it, and he'll make it do with who we have.
And they've made moves, as you say, in the past to they've made acute moves to fix the issue short term, but they've always looked long term to we don't really need to pay them. So the Cooks thing, right? You make the first round pick. The first round trade, you get Cooks, it transforms your offense, and it's like, well, we can get it back. Let's get rid of him. We can replace that. And you couldn't. You haven't yet. So it's still a problem. maybe at some point you need to do the whole look. You need to do a Stephon Gilmore, right? And say, look, at some point, this is one of the most important positions in the game. This is the guy we need to pay market-setting money for. They haven't yet, and I don't think they're going to, which is why I'm looking at guys like Diggs, another couple of people that might be available for trade. How much would the Browns take for Odell Beckham right now? Like, that was supposed to be this amazing connection. Mayfield, Odell Beckham. Now, look, Beckham was dealing with a sports hernia. He clearly wasn't 100% all last season. Everything in Cleveland went to hell last season. People lost their jobs at the end of the year because of it. You can definitely look at that and say, look, Stefanski's come in. There's a new regime. We think that this year it will be the realization of what we thought last year would be. We just put it off for a year while everything fell to pieces. On the other hand, you can look at what happened in the last 12 months and say there is no way that that combination of personalities works together long term. It's just too many alpha type personalities trying to, pull in different directions. So if somebody came in and said, hey, what would you think to number 23 in the draft for Odell Beckham?
Oh, I think the Browns would definitely take that at this point.
And for the Patriots.
And the Patriots were already exploring.
And everything that was, all the positives of Odell Beckham are still there. Like, the guy is still one of the most talented receivers in the game. Multiple seasons with a PFF grade over 90. For a period of 3 years, he led all receivers in broken tackles after the catch. The guy has incredible talent and should function in that Patriots offense. Plus, they only have the one personality to try and diffuse, not 3 or 4 of them.
And I think, the guys that you've mentioned so far, Diggs, Odell Beckham, and the third guy that you wrote about, Keenan Allen, from the Chargers, all guys that are good route runners, guys that can win on the outside, guys that can win in the slot. Basically really good. They're really good receivers all around, but they're also different. Like an Alshon Jeffrey contested catch type is not the type of guy you want to give Tom Brady. They drafted.
I honestly
Harry.
love the Stephon Diggs fit. I think if they could make that happen, that would transform this receiving core. The other thing is, so Diggs, you know how many times he saw double-digit targets this year? The one just gone?
Once.
Yes. Bearing in mind that Thielen didn't play for a bunch of them.
Right.
A bunch of those games.
It was crazy. Yeah, they would make him a high-volume option.
And the game where he got that, 7 catches for 163 yards or 67 and 3 touchdowns.
Yeah.
So, if you feed that guy high volume, he produces. And the Patriots would do that a lot. Plus, he wins in every conceivable way. He wins with route running. He wins with speed. He has, in the last 3 years, I think, the best contested catch rate of any receiver in the NFL. He would be an absolute beast in that offense. Plus, I can't remember who it was that said it on the broadcast, but it was defenses respect Adam Thielen, but Diggs is the guy that scares them. For all the production difference or whatever between the two of them, Diggs is the one that defenses are scared by.
Yeah, he wins at every level. He wins in contested situations. He's a good route runner. He's good he is good at all those things. That is something you could say the same for with OBJ at his best. Keenan Allen, maybe not as well-rounded as those guys, but maybe the best pure route runner.
That's my third option.
Yeah, no, I already gave it away.
Yeah.
It's at pff.com.
Okay. Keenan Allen wins with separation. I think this one is a little more debatable as to whether he's even available. This would rely on the Chargers essentially saying, Phillip Rivers is gone. We're moving on from him. We might be drafting a rookie at 6, are they? And even if we are, we think that it's not going to be, the timeline isn't going to mesh. So we're going to cash in on Keenan Allen, potentially draft a new wide receiver in this great receiving class, and have the 2 young guys develop at the same time, rather than have the rookie developing with an aging Keenan Allen. You know what I mean?
Or
they might be prepared to move on from that and sort of start again more conclusively.
You worked under the assumption that they're trying to build around Tom Brady, bring Brady back and all that stuff, but they could also move on from Tom Brady, and they still need to make similar moves. They still have some issues. What if they signed Phillip Rivers and brought his friend Keenan Allen into New England? Now this is like playing Madden. This is fantasy type stuff, right? Mm-hmm. I assume Brady's going to be back. The tricky part about the timing of all this is obviously free agencies before the draft, so it's not like they can, instill confidence in Tom with 4 draft picks.
Correct.
And then Brady's a free agent at the same time as all these guys, so some sort of trade would have to happen ahead of time.
Yeah.
So I think, for Brady to come back to New England, he needs some sort of evidence that the situation's going to be better.
Yeah, so it's
so
either,
it almost has to be a trade, right?
well, it's trade or free agency, right? I assume Brady's not going to sign within the first 24 hours of free agency. So if you make a move early, you know, you can at least convince him. And I think there's some decent free agent options as well. So A.J. Green is a guy that we haven't really mentioned who might be a trade candidate because the Bengals could tag and trade him rather than just let him walk out of the building.
Yeah.
Green, I think, I think he'd be a good fit in New England. I think he'd cost a lot.
Yeah.
Like, I think his problem is that he's still one of the higher echelon guys. So I don't think, because of what we talked about, that I don't think they value the position this way. I don't think they're going hard after Amari Cooper, who is like the marquee receiver name in free agency, who's going to command the Stephon Gilmore contract. I don't think they're going to do that with Cooper. And for the same reason, I don't think they'll go after A.J. Green, because as much as he's older, et cetera, I think he's still going to command monster money.
I think Green is the guy they kick the tires on just in case the league has all devalued him at the same time.
Yeah,
Said, you're
like if he's still
you haven't
around,
played, he's all banged up, you know, over the last couple of years.
Yeah.
And then they would swoop in and try to grab one of those.
If he's somehow still around
contracts.
like a week and a half into free agency because the market on him is soft, then I can see them swooping in. But they're not going to match, you know, $15 million a year for him.
The thing about those like second tier free agent contracts, the appeal in New England previously was take a little less money. Here's your chance to win a Super Bowl. Finish your career here. You know, you get to play with Tom Brady and all that stuff. Have they completely lost that selling point? They're no longer the big dog in the AFC, competing with the Chiefs, the Ravens, whole bunch of other teams on the rise. Brady's not even completely locked up. If there is a, you know, lower contract opportunity for an A.J. Green, is it even as appealing as it was 5 years ago?
Well, it's not as appealing, but I don't think they've lost the thing. Their problem is that it's like, hey, take a little bit less money, you play with Tom Brady, you get to win another Super Bowl, and the guy's like, okay, and when will Tom be arriving here? Because at the moment, Tom's a free agent. So that is their problem.
It's a harder sell.
It's not that, you know, that whole concept is a lost draw. I think that would still sell people. It's that, like, you can't really, like, at the moment you're selling something you don't have. You know what I mean? 'Cause they don't have Brady under contract. So this idea of take a little bit less money, Tom Brady will be the reason we win Super Bowls. You're like, well, okay, but you don't have Brady. So at the moment you're just asking me to take less money. But I think there's a few cheaper free agent options that are interesting. Emmanuel Sanders is obviously not a long-term solution, but then neither is Brady. So Sanders still getting it done despite wrecking his Achilles a couple of years ago, dominating. Had like a top 20 grade this season despite being traded. Made a clear difference to the 49ers passing offense when he arrived. I think he'd be another really good. I mean, he's kind of similar to Stephon Diggs in terms of the way he wins. A lot of quality in him. I think he'd be a good fit there. Hunter Henry is available at tight end.
That's the guy I think New England
So here's the thing.
Really interested in.
All of the free agent tight ends are basically the same, right? They're all talented receiving options who have massive injury red flags. Whether it's Hunter Henry, Tyler Eifert, Jordan Reed, they're all incredible.
All those guys. I mean, Eric Ebron and Austin Hooper.
Well, they're just not great. But the ones that are actually talented are the ones that have massive injury red flags. Somebody is going to end up getting a steal because one of those guys is going to pan out. You know what I mean? They're going to go on a run where they don't get hurt for like 2 or 3 years. And it's going to be, how did everyone miss on this guy? What were they thinking? How did they let the Patriots snag
I've expected Tyler
X?
Eifert to end up in New England for quite a while.
Same.
I mean, that does feel like the low risk,
I could see
high
Eifert.
upside opportunity.
I could see Henry as well.
And low risk meaning if they can get him for cheap money because of all the injuries. It's high risk because he's always hurt. But
right. So that's the thing. I don't know what the contract is going to be like on any of these tight ends because the talent is so big, but so is the injury.
Henry's still so young, and when he's been healthy, he looks like a top 5 receiving tight end.
Except last year, which is ironic because obviously that's the most recent piece of evidence. But Henry is a guy who can, obviously massively upgrade the bunch of stooges they had at the position this year.
Yeah, I think Henry's going to be coveted among tight ends.
One more name that intrigued me as a free agent, Brashad Perriman.
That doesn't seem like a fit at all for
Why
New
not?
England and the Patriots. I don't know that he's the most precision route runner.
Neither was Josh Gordon.
Yeah, but like Gordon, you could trust to run.
You just compared.
slants.
Yes, I did. I compared it.
You can run slants, posts,
Tell me
and goes.
Perriman isn't
with-
capable of running slants, posts, and goes. Get out of here.
Gordon wasn't. He's a good route runner. Gordon.
No.
They did. I mean, they weren't on the same page with
Here's
some
the thing,
stuff,
right?
but-
My point with all this stuff is you need multiple different options, right? Perriman is not the answer.
Right.
Having said that, Perriman can do a much better job of taking the top off of defense than Philip Dorsett can. And you don't have anybody doing that at the moment.
Yeah, to fill, say, a Philip Dorsett type role.
Perriman can be a viable deep threat in your offense. He was a pretty good contested catch guy this past season. He eliminated the drops problem, which was his issue in Cleveland and Baltimore, and he made some big plays. I'm saying that of all the options, this guy I don't think is going to be a highly coveted. Like, he's going to sign somewhere for like 1 year, $7 million. You should definitely take that as a deal if you're the Patriots, because why the hell not?
Oh yeah, and like a prove it again type year.
Right. 1 year, $7 million. You have a guy who should be able to take the top of your defense. If it craps out, all it cost you was $7 million worth of cap space, you're fine. You should absolutely be snagging that and adding one or two more other guys.
See, I think if they just got a Stephon Diggs, the trickle-down effect, you have Diggs and Edelman on the field. Okay, there's two trusted guys.
Yes.
It moves Mohamed Sanu down a peg.
Off the roster.
Well, I think Mohamed Sanu is a viable number 3 and a questionable number 2.
Well,
right?
So I would say you get Diggs, you get Edelman, you have N'Keal Harry, who they have to try and salvage this
I was
year.
going to get there, but
And you should probably draft someone as well, at which point Mohamed Sanu is expendable.
yeah, but I still think a Sanu as a 3, and then Harry as a gadget player, or finally move him to the slot or like a big, a move tight end type of route tree for Harry. And then you still need to find a tight end. They cannot trot out the slowest tight ends in the NFL. Again, you still need to figure out something at tight end. So I think it's Diggs and a tight end, right? That combination could completely turn things around, make life attractive for Brady to come back in New England and have that one last go.
Yeah.
That's what I think. And you know, the draft, the tough part is you gave up a 2 for Sanu. And here we are, the guys that you listed in the draft, Brandon Ayuk and Jalen Reagor, KJ Hamler. Draft capital would be really useful.
It would be.
With this wide receiver class if you have that massive need this year.
It would. And I think because, like, obviously the Patriots are never picking up at the top, so the very high-end guys, the CD Lambs, the Jerry Judys, Ruggs probably, they're all out of reach, right? So you're looking at this sort of second, third tier of guys. The good news is, I think, that because it's such a stacked receiver class, somebody's going to, like, fall.
Oh, yeah.
And you're going to have a really good player way lower down than you should have.
KJ Hill?
Yeah,
Ohio
somebody
State
like
would be
that.
nice.
And I think Ayuk's interesting, right? Because you would actually team him back up with N'Keal Harry, which would be kind of fascinating. They're the same class, right? They're both, like, Harry came out as a junior, Ayuk stayed as a senior.
Yep.
And looks, at the time of coming out, like a dramatically better prospect, which is intriguing because when they were both playing at the same time, Harry was the guy in that offense. He was getting all the targets. He was the one making all the plays, and Ayuk was a secondary dude. Then when he became the number one, like, he was a run after the catch threat. The guy's got incredible speed. He wins in a much more translatable manner, I think, than N'Keal Harry did. But it would just be kind of interesting putting them back in the same offense again a year later. And then, I think KJ Hamler would be pretty fascinating because, again, speed, right? A better version of Philip Dorsett, a guy with quicks and route running. You know, hands are a little bit unideal, but still, like, potentially available way lower down than some of these other guys, but brings that explosiveness, the thing that you don't have to this offense, which is guys that can run away from people and get the hell open.
Yeah, so I like your plan here. Now, the tricky part from a team building standpoint is you can't put all of your actual money and draft capital into just your playmakers. You know, the defense can, they need to, bring playmakers back there. They're losing, Joe Tooney's a free agent at left guard. They have to figure stuff out on the offensive line. So the Patriots have put themselves into a tough spot. And I think that's the consistent theme around the NFL. When you have a weakness that is a multi-year weakness, we've talked about this before, the Chargers offensive line and a few other players, the Falcons offensive line, Falcons pass rush. I mean, there's certain position groups that you feel like you're just, trying to fill every single year.
Yeah.
And that puts you in a tough spot.
I mean, it's not ideal.
UK, are they taking PTO today? Are they off?
I don't know.
That's bowling, right?
Yes, but look at the number.
Why are they bowling?
A 75?
Harley's never bowled before.
Like, are you even looking at the lane to bowl a 75?
Ian's a pro. It's pretty good. 148 is not that good, but
No.
Ian wins.
Yeah. So, right, yeah, they're in a tough spot. Look, this is not the ideal way. Like, throwing a colossal amount of resource at one position in one offseason is never an ideal strategy. It's an indication that you've left things get into an ugly state and you need to fix it quickly. Plus, it's only more acute because now you have a quarterback who is probably going to leave if you don't, or at least give him, pretty firm indications you're going to do that.
Right.
And you don't have a succession plan at that position either. So they're in this double compounded position of we need to fix receiver, one, because we don't have any receivers, and two, because the quarterback's going to leave if we don't. So everything needs to go at this. In an ideal scenario, that's going to have knock-on effects of making other things worse. But the net result of that is going to be less of a problem if you fix receiver. You're way better off fixing receiver knowing that it's going to have a detrimental effect somewhere else than you are not fixing receiver and just being screwed.
If you believe passing league, the Patriots have won all those games because they've got this baseline of success with their passing attack. Mm-hmm. That's it. And then the years that they've put it together, the defense has done a nice job and come together, and that's how you win. I do think, the more we study this stuff, I think first off, having an elite quarterback immediately makes your passing attack, rank in the top 10 or near the top of the league. Having good playmakers brings that even higher. And then having that passing attack gives you that baseline of winning a ton of games, unless you're really, really bad elsewhere. And then when it pairs with other parts of your roster being good, okay, now you're a championship caliber team. But it all starts with pass the ball, stop the pass, and they weren't passing the ball very well last year. So if they do look at this as a major weakness, then trade,
how could you
draft, free agency, they have to go all in on those components.
How could you not look at this as a major weakness? The absolute ceiling of 2020 in the passing game is bringing Brady back and getting exactly what you got out of him this year, probably minus 5% because he's 43 years old. He's not getting better next year. He's probably, slowly declining. And
you're very careful with that now.
Yeah. And if you don't give him better receiving weapons, you're not getting better. So you have to. It's that simple.
All right.
The only X factor in all that is N'Keal Harry, right? He's the guy with the first round talent, apparently, on the roster. Dude played 270 snaps last year. Basically, injury robbed him of his entire rookie year. When he did get on the field, he couldn't separate to save his life. But who knows what year two Harry looks like? Maybe this is a guy that needed a year in the NFL system, healthy, gets himself, all I'm saying is we don't know what Harry will look like next year. Maybe he'll look better.
I think his best case scenario, if you're a Patriots fan, would be someone like Marvin Jones, who, he could separate a little bit more than Harry. But Marvin Jones or Demaryius Thomas are the two guys we keep comping to, right? Where Marvin Jones wins a lot in contested situations. It is kind of his calling card, having those ball skills. Demaryius Thomas was the guy that he essentially ran slants, he ran go balls and back shoulders off of it, and he did well after the catch.
Yeah.
If you could maybe get that type of production if Harry improves in some areas. He's still not that explosive off the line, but maybe it was the injury stuff. But that's a lot of hoping for that rather than, building the other pieces around him.
Yeah.
So
I have much more confidence in his ability or the Patriots' ability to turn him into something if they're not relying on him being a number one to make it happen.
Right.
If your plan in 2020 is N'Keal Harry suddenly looks like a first-round player and everything's okay because that's the thing that has a knock-on effect, I think you're boned. If your plan is we can turn N'Keal Harry into a pretty good receiver because Stephon Diggs is now in the building and Julian Edelman is back to being a secondary option that doesn't have all the attention focused on him, and we've got James White, and we'll draft a tight end, and N'Keal Harry can suddenly be an additional weapon, moving around the place. Now I think you've got something to work with. But if you're relying on him being the thing that catalyzes all these other improvements, I think you've got problems.
Yeah, that's risky. All right, man. Go check out PFF.com. Sam wrote the full breakdown, what the Patriots can do to address their wide receiver / tight end dilemma this offseason. Want to get into some more free agency talk?
Sure. What are we doing?
buyer beware.
Ooh.
Okay, and I think our list will give some of this away. I think the easiest way to break this down is to look at our free agent list versus other free agent lists. And I think let's start with edge defender because I think this is
almost all of them. Next. Oh, sorry, you wanted a longer segment than that.
Yeah, so I don't know if you've done this before, but I'm setting the groundwork. I'm kind of setting the table for what we're going to talk about.
Oh, okay.
Giving some backstory, giving some context. Then we're going to have a high-level discussion using our football smarts that everybody tunes in for.
Right.
Okay, and we're going to go back and forth and explain our position on this.
Uh-huh.
Why do we think these guys, are caveat emptor, buyer beware type of players? It's like my Latin.
Sure. I didn't catch it. What was
Caveat emptor.
emptor?
Yes.
I see. Yeah.
That means buyer beware.
Huh.
Okay.
All right.
I mean, I learned like 6 things in high school. That was one of them.
Huh.
I had.
Ironically, I actually did Latin for 2 years in school, and I knew the first part, not the second part.
You know, everybody's got that one. Who was that one high school teacher that taught you some valuable stuff? We had this one guy who taught classes about like life skill type of stuff. You know what happens
life
when
skill. Latin was your life skill.
No, but more like using a credit card. The risks of using a credit card and what happens. What if you have to?
How did that talk go?
Don't use one. Basically, here's how much interest you're going to pay
Right.
and how stupid it is. But he kept saying caveat emptor. That was his way of buyer beware. I forget what we were talking about specifically, but he kept saying buyer beware in Latin. And I was like, hey, I'm using that.
So I went to a pretty posh, I guess would be the word, independent school in England.
Son of
Right.
2 doctors.
And they did Latin. Like that was one of the subjects you got taught. So like the first few years that you did like all these topics and you had no choice in the matter, right?
Yep.
Then after like year 4 or whatever it was, you got to dump some stuff. So I did 2 years of Latin. The first year, at the end of year exam, I got 42%. The second year, I got 27%.
Out of 100?
Yeah. Well, because I knew I wasn't going on, so I wasn't doing anything. Like I knew next year I was dumping the subject, so why bother learning any of it?
What an embarrassment.
Yeah, well, look, it was deliberate. I don't need to know any of this.
How
It's
did you
Latin.
make it this far here with PFF?
It didn't help that we were
type of work
our
ethic.
class was not great in terms of like behavior. So we made the Latin teacher cry at one point. In fact, I think we actually made him retire. I'm not proud of it, but he basically broke down in the middle of the lesson, threatened to punch out 2 of the boys in the class, said something kind of weird to a couple of the girls that doesn't feel like podcast appropriate material. And then apparently after that lesson broke down crying in the staff room. I think he quit pretty soon after that.
Because you had a 27.
Not because I had a 27. I'm just saying this was the class I was a part of.
I
It
got
was
you.
not a solid behavioral environment in terms of learning Latin. I'm just saying that over the course of 2
that
years
explains why-
combined, I had like 65%.
That explains why you didn't catch my Latin.
Yeah, that's what I'm
reference there.
saying.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
It's all adding up now.
I was better at other subjects, if that helps.
No, it doesn't, because how good are you at buyer beware free agents?
Well, let's find out.
The edge defender class,
Yeah.
which you already gave it away, all of them.
Yeah.
The reason why they're potentially overrated, a bunch of them had a bunch of sacks. They had there's some 1-year wonder type of guys. There's guys that were products of the scheme, and because the further we research this whole thing, the pass rush is not always the catalyst of defensive success. It's more the complementary piece to what's happening with the coverage unit. I think we're finding maybe you don't want to completely overpay for certain pass rushers.
Yeah.
So let's start with the edge defenders. Buyer beware on whom, Sam?
So can I just slight segue, but it's relevant to this, right?
Yes.
So I've been pretty much steadily pissing off the entire state of New York over the last few weeks.
Yeah.
I think I've muted basically everybody in Buffalo at this point.
You're weak, man.
Yeah.
Weak.
But
Running away from confrontation.
And everything we post now is like confirmation that PFF hates the Giants and or Bills. So somebody posted that we'd written some preview piece that was saying essentially the Giants don't have anybody of consequence hitting free agency. They're like, what kind of idiots are you? Marcus Golden is leaving, and he's been the first Giant since, I don't know who the hell it was, to have double-digit sacks in the season.
Lawrence Taylor.
Yeah. How can you say that he is not an important piece of this defense?
Lawrence Taylor? Wait, Strahan played there.
Right. There's no way that was right, because
So
that's what he was saying.
Maybe you don't listen to an idiot.
Yes, but whatever. His point is double-digit
Vernon
sacks.
was there a couple years ago.
Yeah, Olivier Vernon, JPP, Strahan. There's no way one of those three people didn't have double-digit sacks. Anyway, double-digit sacks. Therefore, he's an excellent pass rusher. To what do you say, Steve?
I say he had 509 pass rushes. Sacks are overrated, and sacks do not predict future sacks.
Well, and to be fair, even like he had 64 pressures, which is a decent number as well, but 509 pass rushes.
If sacks were simply presented as a percentage of rushes, and you sorted the league, it just said sack percentage.
Yeah.
That would completely change the narrative on those players. Forget pressures, forget PFF pass rush grade, both numbers which have already been proven to better predict future pass rush performance. Take that out of the equation. If you just did sack percentage around the league, and this guy has 12 on 509 rushes, and then another guy has 12 on 350 rushes, immediately you would go from saying 12 and 12 are the same, and you'd have different context as percentage.
Here's the other thing. Here's some more context for you. 64 total pressures. 18 of them were unblocked, and 14 of them were cleanup pressures.
That's 32 out of all those?
Yeah, so half of his pressure was either cleanup or unblocked, which is why his grade sucks. So again, it's like,
pass rush
how
grade.
come your grade doesn't match up with the numbers, nerds? It's like, well, this is why, because you're not looking far enough. Now, to be fair, you don't have access to this, so you don't know that this is the added layer of context. But this is why, right?
So
the grade is not a meaningless abstract number that's us subjectively like it is.
I think you're talking to the wrong people.
Objective statistics. It's not. There's a lot of people out there.
We have millions and millions of listeners, all of whom are smarter than this.
And you, apparently.
They're all smarter than this. They all have PFF Elite.
Here's the thing.
They all have PSV2. They all understand the context. I was first attracted to PFF because of this.
You were first attracted to PFF because we made you pay for the data.
I wanted the data for free, yes. But before that, I initially said, wow, you said something that was not exactly what I thought it was because you're viewing the game in a different way. Now, I will admit, I did probably send some hate messages and emails and stuff like that, like, you idiots, how did... I actually remember sending something to Neil back in the day. There was a game, 2009, two Jaguars cornerbacks had completely different stats, and one guy gave up 3 touchdowns and had a better grade than the other guy. I think it was Rasheed Mathis and Derek Cox. Mm-hmm. It didn't make sense to me with the stats. But when I started to understand the system and that the stats don't always tell the story and blah, 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 and all that stuff, it made sense. I mean, pass rush is probably the easiest one where we've put a dent because the grades are so consistent. And then when you look back at sacks and projecting sacks, like, it's so inconsistent, I think we've nailed that one.
I think there's a big part of the world changing right now in terms of fake news and everything is crap and blah, blah. All I would ask for people is if and when a situation arises where the grade looks strange, right? It looks weird, doesn't match the numbers, it looks counterintuitive to what you're looking at. Simply ask why that could be. Don't assume, well, it's obviously because they have a subjective bias system and they don't know what they're doing, right? We have 32 NFL team customers. We have never once sat down in a room, gone through tape with somebody in the NFL, and had them come out of the other side going, you guys don't have any idea what you're doing. Like, it's always been, yeah, this makes a lot of sense. I can see, like, they get convinced of why the grade suddenly makes a lot of sense. So when a grade doesn't match what you think it should look like, ask why. And with Marcus Golden, it's a simple answer. The guy did have double-digit sacks. The guy had 64 pressures. That's a lot. On the other hand, he had a ton of pass rushing opportunities, 509, and half of his pressure was either unblocked or cleanup, which means he wasn't doing an awful lot to get those pressures. So that explains that one. And I think you would find the answer is similar for pretty much every scenario where that unfolds. Now, edge rushers.
Wow. Yeah, so I think they're all going to be overvalued, again, because they do make some of the highest money in the NFL in general. But you could start probably with Jadeveon Clowney and say, look, if he's going to have...
Wants to reset the marketplace.
If you're going to reset the marketplace, I just don't want to reset it. I'm not going to reset it for Jadeveon. He's a good, not great player, a guy who is ranked... he's ranked in the top 10 in PFF WAR over the last couple of years with his strong run defense and all that stuff. Last year, number 18 in WAR, number 20 from a pure grading standpoint. So he has a lot of value, but not reset the market type of value. I would start with Clowney. There are more egregious players. Again, we've talked about Shaq Barrett quite a bit. If you're just looking at the sacks and saying, look, this dude had 20 sacks, buyer beware on that for sure.
Yeah, I mean, Clowney is a good player. He's turned into one of the best run defenders at the edge position in the NFL. He has never turned into the phenomenal pass rusher that people thought he would be.
He reminds me of peak JPP. I've mentioned this one before. JPP at his best was a top 3 run defender on the edge.
Same concept as well, like phenomenal athlete coming out. He'll develop into this incredible pass rusher. Never happened.
Was good, not great as a pass rusher the entire at his peak. He reminds me of peak JPP. Shaq Barrett, again, is different. You know, he went from...
I'm so bummed, by the way, that JPP's nickname never sort of took off. I remember watching was it USF he was from?
Yes.
I remember watching a college game of his, and it was him. Who was the edge rusher opposite him?
George Selvey.
Yes. So there's the two of them on the same team, right? And the commentator was losing his mind because JPP's nickname at the time, allegedly, was the Haitian Sensation.
Oh.
That should have translated. That should have come through.
You think that's better than JPP?
Hell yes. The Haitian Sensation?
Maybe he would have had more sacks.
That's what I'm saying. If that had been his nickname all the way through the NFL, the dude would be he'd be the best pass rusher in the NFL.
Hard to disagree.
That's what I'm saying.
That was a good example of, I mean, George Selvey had like 20 sacks one year, and JPP had 3 because he was, you know, a young player with crazy upside. He could do backflips, in case you didn't know. JPP also, our guy Eric had a great question a couple days ago. What was the best non-need draft pick over the last, you know, X amount of years or in NFL history, which you know is one of my favorite draft axioms, right? Don't draft your needs, you know, just draft the best players overall. Now the most valuable players.
That's a whole 6 T-shirts we got to change.
We got a lot of things. But you have the Vikings taking Randy Moss when they were already set at the wide receiver position.
Yeah, I couldn't be bothered to think beyond that. I just was like, okay, that's the answer at the end.
Well, the one I always think of is JPP because they had Michael Strahan. They had Osi Umenyiora.
Oh,
and they drafted JPP.
When was Kiwanuka drafted?
And then they added him to the mix later.
After? Okay.
Yeah, but they did the same thing. So like Strahan moved on. They added Kiwanuka to the mix. They just kept saying, look, we got to roll 3 deep at edge rusher. So I thought JPP was one of the better non-need draft picks because the Giants had 2 loaded defensive ends and then added. Well, they had Kiwanuka ahead of time, and then they added JPP to the mix.
Yeah,
that's what it was.
That's what I thought.
Yeah, I went out of order, but they added him to a loaded group of edge defenders. Is what the point I was trying to make. So Shaq Barrett, we've talked about him before.
I was thinking when he was asking that question that pretty much every scenario where that's happened, it's been good. Like the idea of when you're stacked at one position and you load another one, it's almost always beneficial.
Right. I mean, like the Lions didn't take Aaron Donald because they had Sue and Fairley at the time, I believe. Right. By the way, both of whom were in the last year of their contract.
Yeah.
So there's as we get closer to draft season, there are 2 types of team needs. There are the ones that the fans you interact with on Twitter and block, right?
Mute more than block.
That you mute.
I block some.
Those fans are the short-sighted ones who said, the last thing I saw was my team did this badly, therefore that's what we need, right? Like the Titans fan, like bad Titans fans are probably like, we need a quarterback because Tannehill's terrible, right? And they might be right. But I mean, the most recent thing, or 49ers fans, we need a quarterback because we can't win with Garoppolo, right? The last thing you saw. And then other fans who have, you know, a team needs are multi-year needs. Teams that are smart, you know, they draft a year in advance for their needs. When guys are in their last year of their contract, they're ready to replenish them. That's what the Lions could have done with Aaron Donald a few years ago, but they didn't. They stuck with Sue and Fairley, and then eventually lost both of them. Anyway.
I'm pretty sure it's like a team. I couldn't think of this one as I was sort of mulling over the question in my brain, but I'm sure some team has done that with cornerbacks as well, where they like had a stacked secondary and they added another top end corner, and it's been really good for them.
Yeah, we should look that up and see. But that always works well. Yeah.
All right, so Clowney, good, not great. I wouldn't want to reset the market with him. Shaq Barrett had a ton of sacks. Barrett is again, his is a whole bunch of cleanup and unblocked plays, right?
He had a lot of good plays, too. He had a lot of forced fumbles
Right.
and all that
So
stuff.
this is
The
the
point is,
thing.
though, it's still tough to duplicate.
His grade is effectively the same as it was when we were championing him as an underrated player, and everyone, and he wasn't even starting, right? He was like a rotational body in Denver. He wasn't getting that much playing time, and his grade is exactly the same when he's an every down starter, and he was chasing 20-plus sacks, so everyone's like, oh, that dude's a stud. It's like he isn't really. The thing about sacks is, I don't want to say they're lucky, because
No, they're not.
Well, they might be or they might not be. It depends, right? They're not the same thing for a start. A sack could be an amazing
It just
play.
can't be the number.
Yes,
that you're
a sack,
the one number.
A sack is not a uniform statistic, right? A sack can be a great play where you beat a guy, you beat two guys, you split a double team, you dominate in 2 seconds, you take the quarterback down. Amazing. They're always good results for a defense, but in terms of the quality of the actual defensive play, they vary from that end to you happen to be standing there being dominated at the line of scrimmage when somebody else forced the quarterback past you and you just reached out an arm and grabbed him.
So in our free agent rankings pages, which, by the way, our guys, I think, did a fantastic job of making this look good. The way we've got did you see the 3 different views that we have? There's 3 different views.
I thought there was 2. There's 3?
PFF.com/NFL/free agency. Free-agency. Anyway, there's the slim view, which is just a list of players. Mm-hmm. There's normal view.
Yeah. Okay.
Then there's thick view.
Spelled?
THICC. Millennial thick, as I like to call it.
Millennial thick.
So that's like the more in-depth profile. And if you go to Shaq Barrett in his thick view, you'll see a breakdown of the players with the most pressures and their win percentage and all that stuff. So his win percentage, so this is just the number of times that he beat a blocker, most often in one-on-one situations, but beat a blocker, right? Picked up a hurry or some sort of beaten block, 17.3%. And he had 20 sacks off of that. Calais Campbell actually had a higher win percentage, 17.9%, but only 6 sacks.
Yeah.
So a 14-sack difference, even though Campbell won more often. If you gave those guys the same exact win percentage next year, Campbell could have 12 sacks and Barrett could have 5. I mean, it could go any which way. So
the point is that is not an indication of finishing skill, mostly, right? There are a couple of players who consistently
lay off Brandon Graham.
No, I'm not. I'm going the other way.
Oh.
Saying there are a couple of players. I'm positive, Steve. I am an optimistic, positive outlook kind of human. You don't have to bring it negative every time.
Sorry.
There are a couple of players who have consistently throughout their career generated better than average finishing rates, if you like. The percentage of pressure that they're capable of turning into sacks. Almost most players don't, right? So when you get that kind of differential where the guy with the guy who wins more often gets far fewer sacks, or the guy who wins less often has more sacks, it's not because he's a better finisher and therefore is more valuable. It's that he got kind of lucky that year. He had a ton of unblocked and or cleanup sacks, or he just got lucky. So one of the things we do is, you can't judge an offensive lineman by the number of sacks given up, right?
Definitely not.
Because once that guy is beaten, whether it's a pressure, a hit, a sack, or even nothing at all, is entirely down to somebody else, right? It's basically whether the ball comes out or not. So pass rusher beats offensive lineman at the line of scrimmage. You now have you have the amount of time it takes you to run from that point to the quarterback is the amount of time the ball has to come out, and that basically dictates whether it's nothing at all, quarterback didn't even know it was coming, gets the ball out, you didn't touch him, it's literally nothing. All you did is win at the line, no pressure on the play. It's a hurry. Quarterback sees it coming, gets rid of the ball. It's a hit. Quarterback sees it coming, gets rid of the ball, but you nail him. Or you sack him. He may see it coming, you drill him before the ball comes out. It's a sack, right? All of those things are completely down to the quarterback in the passing game, not your ability to do anything.
Right.
So the same thing is true with pass rush. Once you win, whether it becomes a sack, hit, hurry, or nothing is basically not within your control.
It's also the act of winning is far more difficult than the act of finishing,
And
just from a
therefore
percentage
translatable
standpoint.
and repeatable and predictive.
Like if you can only win quickly, say within 2.5 seconds, say 12% of your snaps, that's difficult to do. Now, once you win and 30% or 40% of those turn into sacks, okay, which is more difficult, right? So it's hard to win quickly. Anyway, all that said, Shaq Barrett was very good last season. He's a very good player. He's still young. He went from an underused, overperforming player to now a guy who's slightly overrated if you're just looking at sacks. I'm just not going to break the bank for him. He shouldn't have reset the market type of money either just because he had 20 sacks. However, performance-wise, pressure-wise, win percentage-wise, he was comparable to some very good players last year. Cameron Jordan, Donnell Hunter, not Aaron Donald, but Nick Bosa, Chandler Jones, Calais Campbell, who we mentioned. He is in that ballpark, but I would just be careful if you think he's going to put up 20 sacks again if you're just looking at that number.
Yeah, he is a solid pass rusher. It would probably be a mistake to think he's much better than that.
Yannick Ngakoue, another guy, probably 2 years removed from his best grade. He had an 81 grade in 2017. That had him ranked at number 18 among edge defenders. Since that point, just from a grade standpoint, he's ranked 29th and 36th. So we're talking about a guy who can be an edge one, so to speak, for a team, the top edge defender for a team, but at the lower tier of the top edge defenders that are, number one edges. Yeah. So again, if you're expecting a guy that's going to be an annual 15 sack guy, just because he had 14 1 year in 2017, that's a little risky. And then the more obvious ones for us, Robert Quinn, Bud Dupree. Bud Dupree most certainly, just because we're talking about a guy who in 2017 was our number 100 ranked edge defender.
He was better than crappy 1 year in his career so far.
That's a better way of putting it.
Thank you.
So in his career year last year, so he was the number 174th most valuable edge in 2017.
Most valuable edge.
According to ThickView over here. I think you need Elite.
How many edges do you think he even played that year?
If you guys have PFF Elite, not only do you get Premium Stats 2.0, but you got to go check out the ThickView on free agency because you get WAR for these free agents. Our wins above replacement number. It's the first time we've ever released it. That's probably worth the price of admission as it is.
I'm now fascinated as to how many edges even played in a season.
I want to know if that's a typo.
No, I think it probably is right, but it's got to be like basically at the bottom end of the list, right?
So he was 174, then up to 73 in 2018, then up to 17. He'll be number one by next year.
Sure, that's how that works.
So 17th most valuable edge last year. Really good season. The problem with Bud is literally the only year that he was, better than average.
Yeah.
As an edge defender. And Robert Quinn, another guy, how many sacks did he have? Because people, I don't know. This is the thing. I don't even look at sack totals anymore unless I'm trying to tell the story about why they're overrated. That's or underrated. Because I just look at the grade and he was our number 47, Robert Quinn here, number 47 edge defender. Previous year he was number 42, so very consistent there. And only 647 snaps. That hurts his value just a little bit when you're just stacking him up from a WAR standpoint. That's not like break the bank.
I was on NFL Now last Friday.
Nice humble brag.
Thank you. And leading me in was a little segment with Charlie Casserly.
Oh, yeah.
Charlie thinks that they should get Robert Quinn signed up well before they sign Byron Jones. That's the guy they got to get locked down.
Really?
Yeah.
No.
I know.
No.
Yeah.
No. Byron Jones.
Yeah. They did at least say after Dak and Amari, so we didn't have to go that crazy.
We have Quinn at number 53 on our free agency list.
The other one that people are going to talk about is Matthew Judon from Baltimore.
And we've covered this on the show before.
Well, he basically has the exact same story as Marcus Golden, right?
Yeah.
A lot of sacks, double digit. A lot of pressure, 62, 2 fewer than Golden. But 20 unblocked and 15 cleanup. So even more.
More than half.
Yes.
Are the ones that are dependent on other situations.
Yes, even more of his pressure was either unblocked or cleanup compared with Golden. Now, his grade was better, which means when he was winning more decisively and quicker. But then you have to factor in what the Baltimore Ravens offense was doing in terms of scheming. Yeah. Sorry, defense.
Yep.
In terms of scheming, blitzing more than anybody else, getting him in favorable situations certainly more than Marcus Golden was in New York, and therefore benefiting his overall performance. Now, we've said it before, his grade in one-on-one situations, not good. And when he goes somewhere else that isn't the most blitz-happy defense in the NFL, he's going to be one-on-one a lot and have to actually win.
Yeah, I mean, just look, this is all of our analysis is based off of a lot of research, like long-term research. And then you can use one-off examples just to kind of make your point. The one-off example is never the point. It's just a product of it. So the New England Patriots, for years, have essentially valued coverage over pass rush, right? They've said, look, we're going to cover well on the back end, and we're not completely interchangeable up front, but we're going to let Richard Seymour walk. We're going to let Chandler Jones go, trade him. We're going to let Trey Flowers go. I mean, they just let a lot of these guys go up front, and they don't really miss a beat defensively. I think the Ravens are getting to that territory where they're built similarly. They're 2 years. They let Zadarius Smith walk. Zadarius goes and has one of the best pass rushing seasons in the NFL, and the Ravens defense got better.
Yeah.
The same year they let Terrell Suggs walk and C.J. Mosley, who's an inside linebacker, not a pass rusher, but they let their 2 top pass rushers go. They replaced him with Matthew Judon, who is their number 3 rusher. He becomes their number 1. They scheme up all this pressure from him, which is based off the way the secondary works and the way the coverage works. So they're not going to go spend money for Matthew Judon. They're going to continue to believe that those edge guys in our system are interchangeable. Now, so this is, system matters and all that stuff. So if you're the Ravens, you're going to say, okay, we can make a Matthew Judon. You want a baseball analogy?
No.
Of that?
No.
I'm going to give you. I might make this part of my pitch here. I have to write this down for my pitch. Are you muting me?
I wish I could.
My pitch. We're going to make edge defenders like closers in baseball.
Okay.
And I just spelled it in UK style by accident. It didn't correct me.
UK style?
R-E instead of E-R, right? It isn't how you do.
Do what?
E-R. Anyway, listen.
It's what?
What happened in early money ball in baseball? You know what the closer is?
Yeah, sure.
I'm going to give you a smart team building strategy that teams like the Ravens can incorporate here.
Uh-huh.
So a closer in baseball gets the last 3 outs. He gets a save.
Yeah.
You would hate saves in baseball. You would hate it the way you hate sacks, because it's just the guy who gets the last 3 outs instead of outs 4, 5, and 6 out of the last 4th, 5th, or 6th out of the game, right? So they get a save. And, a 30 save guy is like a 10 sack guy. Oh, you got 30 saves. And those guys get paid. They're closers, even though the guys pitching the 8th inning or the 7th inning could be better than them, whatever. So the Oakland A's got smart, and they said, we can make anybody a closer, right? If you let him pitch the last 3 innings, and he's good, he'll have 30 saves, 35 saves, 40 saves, whatever. And then you let them walk, and you get all these compensatory picks and all that fun stuff. I think in the NFL, teams like the Ravens might be able to do that with edge defenders, where they can almost say, look, we're going to build from back to forward. We're going to let these edge defenders rack up sacks and pressures, walk in free agency, and then after they sign big contracts, continue to accumulate the compensatory picks that come from them. That could be one of the new market inefficiencies that smart teams use, because edge defenders always get paid. Now, it might not even be new. Teams could be doing this for a while, but that's one of those ways I think would be smart.
Okay. Can I give you another potential buyer beware guy at
Yes.
edge? Eric Armstead.
Yeah.
Actually played better than basically almost anybody else we've mentioned on the list, but contract year.
Right.
Huge outlier compared to what he's done in the past. I would be pretty concerned about banking on that happening again, as I would be basically with any huge contract year outlier guy heading into free agency.
Yeah.
Sometimes you have to bite the bullet and just roll with it and hope he does it again, but it's always something that would concern the hell out of me.
So I would say this form of buyer beware for us is, I think there's going to be a lot of money thrown at these guys, and even if they all play like Khalil Mack, it's going to be tough to justify the dollar value for their performance. A different type of buyer beware would be, say, like the wide receiver list, right? I think the receivers are probably worth investing in more, just because if they hit, like if Amari Cooper hits and you get number 1 wide receiver production, it's a game changer for an offense. It's a game changer for your team. I think you're instantly turning your offense around if you know you're getting number 1 production out of Amari Cooper or getting that out of A.J. Green. The buyer beware component is the injury, the injuries to A.J. Green. I think Robbie Anderson can be an awesome deep threat for a lot of teams, but maybe not a high volume or as high volume of a type of guy. I think the buyer beware component is viewed in different ways. I just don't know if you're ever going to get your dollar amount back from some of these edge defenders that you'd be paying for.
I think that's fair.
Any other positions or players that kind of stand out in that regard?
We have to talk about the running backs, aren't we?
I mean, running backs are always like this, right?
Well, all right.
Buyer beware on all running backs.
Yes. And it is obvious that the most clear example of this is Derrick Henry this year. How can you guys not have Derrick Henry in the top 5 of your free agent list? He's the best running back in the NFL. He just carried the Titans deep into the playoffs.
Ryan Tannehill.
He's the most valuable player. Yada, yada, yada. I mean, no. You know that's not true. Derrick Henry, A, was not the reason the Titans got that far. B, is not going to repeat it, even if he stays in Tennessee. And C, if he goes somewhere else that has a less beneficial environment around him, definitely won't repeat it. Every single team that has invested big money in a running back in the last several years already regrets the decision.
Yeah.
The last team that didn't, the last team that actually stuck to their guns, maybe it was just because they're cheap, or maybe it was because they actually understood how this works, was the Chargers not caving to Melvin Gordon's holdout. Melvin Gordon comes back, doesn't have the same kind of season, and now he's hitting free agency with an empty tin cup looking for coins as opposed to cashing in his monster deal. Now, sucks to be Melvin Gordon, like he tried to cash in when his stock was high, but the Chargers didn't buy into it, and now the dude is like half the value he was a season ago. The point is, do not invest in running backs because they're not worth it. They're not. And it's sad. Running back is fun to watch. It's a great position.
Yeah, I love watching Henry play.
Those dudes take more punishment than basically anybody else in the NFL, but you are not ever worth paying money to anymore. It's just not. It's just not the way the league works anymore.
Don't pay him. Don't pay him in the first. Don't
let him walk after his rookie contract. Draft another one.
Don't draft him in the first round. Don't pay him. I mean, let's not hammer it home any further. They're fun to watch. I love watching Henry run. He's entertaining. I'm not going to build my team around him. Now, I think what would be fascinating is if you put him in Baltimore. Mm-hmm. I wonder. So let's think outside the box here. Because Baltimore just brought in Mark Ingram, who is a big, bad, but not nearly as big as Derrick Henry, based off that picture.
Well, yeah.
He is a bad, mean runner. Averaged 5 yards per carry last year. And the head of steam that Baltimore's scheme/offensive line gives a running back is tough to tackle.
Yeah.
That makes Ingram a really good fit there. Could a high volume team like Baltimore, who we keep pounding the table for how smart they are, Sam, right? They're doing all the things right, pushing all the right buttons. What if Derrick Henry goes to a team like the Ravens and he's got 3 yards before contact, 4 yards before contact, and he's now full head of steam at linebackers and safeties? Could that be the place where he is actually worth the money because he's going to average 6 yards a carry because of Lamar Jackson? And the scheme and the offensive line?
He'd be really good in that scenario. He'd probably lead the league in rushing. He'd look fantastic. But you would have to break the bank in order to make it happen, and you can get 80%, 85, 90% of that production from a dude you draft in the third round who's paid a fraction, a tiny percentage cut of Derrick Henry's contract. So it doesn't make sense in any way, shape, or form.
Okay, just checking. So buyer beware on all free agent running backs.
Or you could wait a year until somebody else pays Derrick Henry the huge money, regrets it, gets rid of him, and then you can get him for half that.
You also have to believe the workload has to catch up to him at some point. It's not just the NFL workload. College,
yeah.
High school. I mean, he has been toting the rock for quite a while here.
His college one is interesting because total, it's not actually that big. It's just that it
was that 1 year.
Right, it's just 9,000 carries came in one season.
With that 1 year, they really crushed him.
Yeah. But overall, he didn't have the biggest college workload.
Right. You mentioned I'm going to give you a tight end here, Austin Hooper.
Yeah.
The number that I pulled out here. I was responsible.
I like your number because it backs up 100% what I thought all along.
Yeah, and it's one of those where
PFF works.
The PFF grade itself was really good, 78.3. And it was number 8 among tight ends last year. And I had to go back and say, wait a second. I need to know how much of Austin Hooper's production was him winning one-on-one, because the more we talk, the best tight ends, the Travis Kelce's, the Gronks, the George Kittles, those are the guys you're like, I could put him anywhere on the field. I know he's going to win one-on-ones. Linebackers can't cover him. Safeties, nobody can cover him. So I went back and I looked at where did Austin Hooper get this production from? And it turns out 75.5% of his receiving production, 3/4 of his receiving, came on targets that we called either a hole in the zone or something underneath of the defense. So he's either finding soft spots in the zone, cool, or catching a drag route or a flat route or something and creating yards after the catch or whatever it might have been. That is by far the highest percentage in the league. 3/4 of his production. Then I said, okay, how did he do against single coverage? Because we track this stuff. He has a 58.9 receiving grade.
There you go.
Well below the league average against single coverage since 2016.
Yeah.
So this is a multi-year sample. So I have a huge, even buyer beware. So even with the PFF grade saying he was good last year, previous year said he was just okay anyway. But last year it says he was really good. And I think this is a really good example of, you guys lie at PFF. Your grade lies. And we say, yeah, sometimes the grade is inflated or the stats are inflated or something's inflated because of other things. And this would be one example of Austin Hooper getting some scheme help, getting some Julio Jones / Calvin Ridley are on the field help, and just not necessarily the mismatch weapon you want to spend a lot of money for at tight end.
I think Mike Renner was the one who said that you will never convince him that Austin Hooper is anything other than a replacement level tight end, which basically backs up 100% what I've always thought about him dating back to his Stanford days.
Yeah.
Same idea. And look, there's a skill set to finding soft spots in zones and, exploiting that kind of stuff.
Right. I'm not trying to diminish that.
It's just a way easier one to replicate than
Right.
a skill set of actually getting open against people trying to cover you.
Right.
Like, you can manufacture production out of anyone that's smart enough to understand the defense with the first way of doing things, right? Like Miles Austin, it's the Thomas Jones, right? It's that thing of he will get exactly what's given and no more. And that is the sort of Thomas Jones of receiving, is just understanding where you're supposed to be given the defense you're looking at.
Right.
And therefore you will get this target because that's what's open.
And so if you're the Falcons, you should look at this and say, okay, we could put maybe not anybody out there, but we could put the next, similar tight end out there and get some production. So we're not going to pay him. If you're another team, you have to just be careful.
The guy that always leaps to mind with this in terms of being the sort of receiver Thomas Jones is Miles Austin. You remember there was a couple of seasons where Austin was really good.
I thought he looked
He was,
good, though.
So there's a couple of seasons where he was really, really good. But then the last couple of seasons of his career, it was like Miles Austin is getting you 100% what is there in terms of zone scheme and nothing else.
Right.
Like he is getting only what he is available to sort of sit in the gap of. He's not getting open to save his life if someone is actually covering him in man coverage.
Well, that was like Chris Hogan in New England as well.
So, same idea.
Hogan had a big year where he kind of had some busted coverages that he ran behind, and Brady and him had a good rapport, and then all of a sudden it was like, all right, that's not going to happen anywhere else.
Right.
And it hasn't, or didn't. So that's our buyer beware section for free agency. I mean, buyer beware in general, free agency. Just be careful. Get that second wave. Don't spend too much money in free agency. Let's wrap up the pod. I broke down Joe Burrow.
Oh, good.
Do you have any Joe Burrow thoughts in general?
No.
From what you've seen from him?
Talk to me.
So I went in depth on Joe Burrow's game. We went in trying to ask the question, is Joe Burrow the best prospect we've seen at quarterback since 2014? And the
Currently
data
occupied by Baker, right?
What's that?
Currently occupied by Baker.
Currently occupied by Baker Mayfield. And the data says that individual season's the best season we've seen. I mean, whether you look at PFF grade, you take PFF grade and you say, look, in the SEC, it's a lot more difficult to do this than, say, the Big 12 where Baker and Kyler tore it up and Mahomes tore it up. Yes, that's true. Wins above average, which is our college war equivalent. Burrow's in a whole different stratosphere. But the 2018 season where he was good, not great, it's still a thing. Like, that's still a part of the body of work. So I think we came to the conclusion Baker's still the best prospect that we've graded because he had 3 elite seasons, 3 90-plus years, and was really, really consistent in college. Still has a chance to salvage that backslide last year and see what happens. See if he gets together off the field. But the point with Burrow, there's still that question mark. He got an NFL caliber coach in Joe Brady. We don't really know exactly what's happening behind the scenes, but they're running the Saints offense in college. And he's essentially a grad school player. He's taken one class, and he was basically like an NFL player at 23 years old, running an NFL offense against college kids last year with 3 NFL caliber receivers and an NFL caliber tight end and an NFL caliber running back and all this stuff. That's not to diminish what he has done, because I think he was spectacular. But the long story short is, one spectacular year from Joe Burrow, 3 elite years from Baker. Baker still probably was a cleaner, pure on-field prospect than Burrow coming out. But Burrow's pretty close. And he does everything you want an NFL quarterback to do.
That's the interesting part, is that, you can look, if you want to look at his thing or his season in unfavorable light, you can say, well, look at all the stuff that he's good at, all these things that don't translate, like incredible under pressure, all the things that are volatile that don't tend to translate year on year and aren't predictive. He was too good at that stuff. So you got to expect some kind of regression.
Right.
The thing is, he was also really good at the stuff that does translate, the stable stuff. Like all of his numbers on the things that do translate were insane as well. So even if you get some kind of regression from the stuff that is, volatile and not sticky, like the rest of the stuff should still give him a high baseline.
Yeah, so I'm doing a whole study on our stable and unstable metrics. I mean, he really was like first in all of them. All of our stable metrics, he's first. All of our unstable stuff, he's first. I will say, the outside the pocket stuff, I don't know how you feel about this one. The outside the pocket stuff, while unstable year to year, I want my quarterback to show that he can make plays outside structure, right? I just want that right now. To me, that was what kept Josh Rosen down a little bit a couple years ago. It's also like, if you are looking at Josh Allen and only focusing on that versus the in-pocket stuff, that's overrating it. But after my quarterback has a foundation of like, I know he can win within the pocket, I really want him to be able to win outside of structure. And Burrow was our highest graded guy outside the pocket last year.
And it was the same kind of story with Baker in terms of, like, it was hard to find a number where he wasn't pretty comfortably leading everybody, right?
Right.
Same idea with Burrow, right? It's difficult to find data points where he isn't clearly the best person in the draft class. I love that. So we have our producer here, Ken.
Ken is just
psychotic Bengals fan.
Ken is still typing. He's still typing.
Of course.
Still typing.
Ben's hot take, or Kenneth's hot take, Ken, is that Burrow is going to the best situation for a #1 pick in a long time.
He's also dropping
because obviously he's going to the Bengals.
He's also dropping Terrell Owens. That's my quarterback. Yes.
Yeah.
I don't think the Bengals have the best situation right now. No, that is a really hot take, Ken.
Yeah.
Yeah, Ken, you're not going to be on the show anytime soon with those types of takes. You're going to have to up your take game and actually make it make sense.
Bengals don't feel like a great situation when you consider that their offensive line was awful. Now it should get better because Jonah Williams is coming back, but still bad. Your receiving core wasn't great to begin with, and A.J. Green's probably leaving.
Well, so here's what's going to happen.
He wasn't there last
They'll
year. They'll
re-sign A.J. Green, bring him back.
Okay.
They got Tyler Boyd.
Yeah.
John Ross. I mean, Joe Burrow is going to get the most out of John Ross.
Of course.
Tyler Eifert is going to get all sorts of HGH'd up and come back as well. He's going to stay healthy for a year. Jonah Williams is going to get that offensive line to creep back well past average, coming back after missing last year. There it is. I just talked myself into it. Then they'll draft a second. The tackle class is so deep. They'll draft Tristan Wirfs beginning of the second round. He locks down the right side. Jonah's on the left side. And then, boom, our hometown Bengals, 8-8 next year. 8 one-score games last year. Come on, guys. He's got some data. I mean, that's a good take. 8 one-score games last year for the Bengals. They weren't as bad as you think.
They were pretty bad.
Hashtag they're still pretty bad.
Yeah.
Yeah. But we're going to be better. Which job should I pitch next week? Is that a secret?
I mean, not anymore. One of the segments we're thinking of doing for the PFF live show is Steve actually doing his interview to an actual NFL person.
We're trying to find an NFL person that will hear my interview and kind of like, throw a grade on it or something.
You can sit down, you can tell them about the hashtag that you're going to create for that team. It was important to have a hashtag, otherwise, what the hell are you doing in today's
Right, I need a team. So we're like almost a week away. I need a team to prep for here.
You're going to show them that you've reinvented coverage.
Yeah, that's on my list.
You're not going to run cover 2, cover 3. You've reinvented coverage. Just drop to the hot point in the map.
Edge defenders are the new closers. I don't want to give away the whole spiel.
Right, but you're going to have a whole job interview essentially showing the NFL that you're ready for a job. And this guy having NFL experience is going to give us an honest reaction as to what would happen if you did that in a room.
This is great. The people need to see. We need a projector or something. The people need to see my PowerPoint work.
Yes.
Somehow we need to display that.
God.
Maybe we'll put an article at pff.com. This could be what we do. We put an article at PFF with my interview PowerPoint, and people can log on and read it as I'm presenting. That could be what it is.
Yeah,
I got a lot of work to do.
you do.
Hold all my calls, Michael. This week I am in the office creating my PowerPoint, taking over a team. What job am I interviewing for? I need to know this.
Well, let's go
All of
GM.
them? GM/DC.
I think you should go GM.
My reinvented coverage, I don't know if I have that type of pull as the GM. I can't just tell my defensive coordinator how to cover, or can I?
Of course you can. You hire the guy that shares your vision for the future.
Yeah, that's true.
And your vision
Right.
for the future is going to be reinventing coverages.
You going to help me with this at all? Like, how much do you want a job when I'm a GM?
Well, so far the best job I've been offered in your regimes has been like social media guy.
Well, let me see how much you can contribute to my interview here.
I'd plan on contributing quite a lot of ridicule. Does that help?
Do you what?
I'd planned on contributing quite a lot of ridicule.
Yeah, you probably won't get a gig
Oh.
after I get a gig.
Okay.
All right, anyway. Joe Burrow.
So he's by far the best. What's the separate him from Tua for me, other than the fact that one of them is a working hip?
Yeah, I just can't believe
Two working
how
hips, in fact.
Tua's missing something to me. Tua reminds me a lot of Jimmy G. I thought that before the season and now, and I've compared Jimmy G to Hasselbeck. I mean, Tua, the comparison I made to Jimmy G is the quick release. I mean, it's quick. Tua's got a little bit more arm than I maybe gave him credit for before the season. He's got a little bit more zip on it, and maybe it's because I just watched Burrow, who doesn't have zip necessarily. Not that it matters for him. But Tua cycles back and forth between, wow, look how fast he's going through progressions. He's quick-minded. And then a few times, you know how Jimmy G just all of a sudden just doesn't see a linebacker?
Mm-hmm.
Or it's like, why are you holding the ball for 3.5 seconds? Tua has some of those plays in his game where you're just about to say, like, wow, mastery of the offense. Wow, he's doing everything so quickly. And then other times he's just like slow going through things. I don't think Tua throws with great anticipation, but when he sees, here's an outbreak, I'm going to put it there, he can do that. So he's more of a see it, throw it type of guy. Burrow, I think, can do all of that. He can see it, throw it. He can throw with anticipation, quick decision maker. He has a couple hero plays he needs to cut out as well, but he was so good. The hero plays were so good, it's like, all right, I'll take a few of those negatives because Burrow created outside the pocket better than Tua did, and that's not supposed to be the narrative or his game.
And he's dealing with a similar sort of knock in terms of look at that receiving core.
Oh, yeah,
Like
both
if you're
receiving
not able
cores.
to be successful given the
Yes.
group he was throwing to, you would have major problems.
Both Alabama and LSU have, first rounders all over the place as far as receiving cores go.
They
And
have a dramatic, like normally this idea of college X over anything NFL Y is absurd, but Alabama definitely had a better receiving core than the Patriots did last year by a distance.
They did. They had guys that could get open, and they were way fast. Everybody's faster than everybody
Like
in New England trotted out.
if you'd offered Belichick a straight swap between Alabama's receiving core,
consider it.
he would
Absolutely.
take it. Not even consider.
Yes.
He would take it in a heartbeat.
Yes. Plus Irv Smith the year before, second-round tight end to the Vikings. Just ridiculous. Burrow does a lot of things extremely well. I could not believe how many passes he threw that were just like face mask high, exactly where he wanted. Like 20 yards down the field, 30 yards down the field.
Parisian.
Yeah, it was just like,
Parisian.
it made it look so, it was just easy. People talk about he throws a catchable ball, and I do think there's something to, not to pick on Josh Allen again, like a Josh Allen 10-yard laser where it's like you're kind of fighting it to catch it, and Burrow just throws this nice, easy, he throws it just hard enough to get it there for catch and run opportunities. Now, I think Burrow and Tua, like I said, Tua's arm's better than I anticipated, but it's not a cannon. Like there'll be, with Burrow, I specifically said in the breakdown, there'll be some of the tight window throws he got away with at LSU that probably get knocked away at the NFL level. I don't think it's going to kill him, but there's a couple he just kind of like floated backside and it gets there and it gets knocked away at the next level. But I think Burrow, you can win. He completed 82% of his in-breaking routes. So if you just go slants, ins, including deep digs, posts, anything in breaking.
This can be all part of your presentation.
82%. What, am I the Bengal?
Just run in breakers. All we're going to run from every position is in breaking routes.
Yes. That's a great way to sound like an idiot.
Slants
as an
across the
analytics
board.
guy. Look, if we
Everybody
just run
slants.
these 4 routes, that's all you need.
You've heard of four verticals. We're going to run 4 slants.
That is a play, all slants. Yeah, of course, people run all slants all the time.
Mm-hmm.
You don't want all slants because you want to have a 2-beater and a 1-beater opposite. You don't want to have the same stuff. You don't want to run all slants is stupid. You want to run all slants on one side and then have, a different type of coverage beater on the other side.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
That's why you can run slant flat in all slants, right? Mm-hmm. We run a little tiger dragon, something like that, but you don't want to just throw in lingo.
Yeah.
Bruce has that one play that he just like rattles off. It's like the one play.
Yeah, it is.
It's awesome. Bruce has it down.
Pretty sure it is the only play that he remembers.
It's the one play that Chris Sims, I'm telling you, I don't know why you don't want to have Chris Sims on the show, because we can ask him the same play call that Gruden asks him that he screwed up. Somebody else must do that, right? Like recite the play call that he kept screwing up in the famous Gruden clip. We could have some fun with Chris Sims on the show. Maybe he's one of our fallback. Chris Sims is a fallback guy. I'll just say it right now.
Have to do the whole show with a top button.
Yeah. We want our guests to feel comfortable.
But that's uncomfortable.
We feel uncomfortable, so our guests can feel comfortable.
Can we?
I'm not gonna lie, Chris Sims, you're a D-list celebrity for our. You're a D-lister as far as our group of potential guests. But we'll see if A, B, and C all fall through. We got Chris.
That'll really help snag him.
This is part of the shtick here. It's part of the game.
Okay.
Just let me go.
Knock yourself out.
He's our number 4 option. He's on the list of number 4 options. Like he's not the number 4 option. Like he's on the list of the 4th best options.
Okay.
But if we have to land at Chris Sims, top button and all, I think we could have some fun with it. Anyway, Joe Burrow's pretty awesome. Check out my breakdown at pff.com. I think he's definitely the guy that the Bengals should take. I think 2 is close, but Burrow's got a little bit more, just the high-end stuff that he did. As good as he was out in the in-breakers, his touch passes were incredible. I mean, he was good at everything last year.
Those 2 are like a pretty clear 1-2, right? There's
I think there's a drop-off with Justin Herbert being 3. And honestly, I don't know if there's any other first-round caliber guys beyond that. There's rumors that guys like Jacob Eason are going to sneak in there, Jake Fromm. I mean, it's rumor season where anybody that is over 6 feet and can throw a football is going to get rumored into the first round.
Yes.
So I think there's probably 3 first-round picks. But the lower you get, there's already a report out there today that the Dolphins like Herbert over Tua. There's already been rumors that the Bengals like Herbert as their guy. Please just don't get sucked into 6'6".
Oh, people will.
In the cannon for an
There's
arm.
too many people in the NFL that live for that are going to be like, I love it. Plus, everyone is still like, so Josh Allen, roaring success. Daniel Jones, roaring success in the eyes of some. There are going to be people that look at that as a positive data point for drafting prototypical, inverted commas.
Do you know what arm strength's like, though?
Quarterbacks.
Arm strength's like our running back argument, right? Is there a difference in running back skill from this guy to this guy? Yes. You can have this much difference, a big difference in skill that only leads to a little bit of a difference in production. All arm strength is like the icing on the cake. If you do everything else well, you can afford to do everything less well because your arm strength makes up for it. You could be a little bit later. You might have a few more tight window throw opportunities, but you still have to be accurate on them, right? It just gives you a little bit more leeway with all the other stuff. But if arm strength is the basis for your analysis, and that's what it would be. If you're comparing Burrow, Tua, and Herbert, you're starting with velocity in perceived upside.
Yeah.
And my friend Mike Tannenbaum's a big Herbert fan because I think he's blinded by size.
There's going to be a lot of people. Like I'm saying, the people that are already on that bandwagon are seeing Daniel Jones and Josh Allen as like positive reinforcement data points for that. They're going to be emboldened by the relative success of those 2 more than they are like learning from that. I was just looking.
Sorry, Jordan Love is the other guy getting a lot of first-round hype too.
I was just looking for draft rankings to find out where the rest of the world has my boy Jamar Smith ranked. Right?
Oh, jeez.
My guy. I
think we're ready for just like a Your Guy podcast.
Right? Louisiana Tech?
Yeah.
Louisiana Tech quarterback, who I will happily admit I haven't actually watched in a year. But I assume much the same has happened this season than happened before. Now, I looked in somebody's rankings that are 20 quarterbacks deep, and he's not on the list, right? So he's apparently ranked beyond 20. On that list is Shea Patterson and Brian Lewerke, who Eric calls Brian Lewercheeks. Those quarterbacks are not better than Jamar Smith. I freely admit that I have not dived deep into this class yet, but there's no
Lewerke's
way.
been pretty bad.
There's no way those two guys are better than Jamar Smith.
Lewerke, I have comps for both those guys.
Perfect. Who you got?
One guy, nobody's going to know. Matt Grothe.
Yes.
Remember him?
Yes.
USF.
Bad.
Couldn't throw the ball.
Yeah.
Is like the guy that, I'll pick up 6 on 3rd and 6 on the ground just to like keep some drives alive, but I'm not really that good at quarterback.
Yeah.
That's Brian Lewerke.
Perfect.
Shea Patterson reminds me of Josh McCown.
Okay. That's not terrible.
No.
I mean, it's not great, but
No, but it's more like I'm a little bit more uncomfortable playing outside of structure. I'm gonna.
it's like the bad part.
I'm probably. Oh yeah, I'm probably gonna hold the ball. So we were looking through the archive. Josh McCown had a play that we could have given like a -4 before. He like fumbled. He like dropped the snap, picked it up, and then made a -2 throw. I forget what it
Yeah.
was. It was with Tampa Bay a few years ago. I mean, Josh McCown's bad.
That was like right after
bad.
earning himself a starting gig.
Oh yeah, after he had that
6-game
great
stretch in
2013.
Chicago.
Exactly. So the Josh McCown comparison for Shea is like I could see Shea sticking around as like an NFL backup who comes in and wins outside of structure and keeps the defense off balance for like 2.5 games.
Okay. I'm just saying there's no way those two guys are better than my guy Jamar Smith.
Maybe you should do some research.
I already
We'll
did.
have a little breakdown. Lewerke, Shea Patterson, and Jamar Smith. People will love it.
I did some research a couple of years ago, and there's no way anything changed in that period of time.
Nothing's changed.
Nothing.
The players never change. Yeah, first impression. That's all you get from Sam.
God, he's not in the top 20 at Walter football either. The world is sleeping
Why
on,
are you looking
on
at all
Jamar
these
Smith.
terrible rankings?
Because I know what our rankings are. I'm looking for the perception. Where's Jamar ranked out there in the world?
Well,
And apparently
create
the answer
perception.
is beyond 20.
It's time for us to create perception. The Jamar Smith podcast coming
I'm on
up
it.
Thursday.
We'll get Boston Scott on. He'll tell us.
We should invite Boston to the show to.
Well, he's not going to go to the show. The dude's not going to be in Indy.
No, I mean our
We
show.
can get,
our
we
show.
can get him on our show.
On the
and he
podcast.
can tell us about Jamar Smith and why he's great.
Work on that. Is that it for today?
Sure.
So live show.
Yes.
That's it for us today. Live show.
Thursday, 27th at 7 p.m.
Tell your
The
friends.
Tin Roof.
It be like the University of Michigan student who is one of our diehard podcast fans. He has an exam that night. I would never suggest skipping the exam for the PFF live show. However, he's sending his girlfriend to represent
Yeah.
the couple at the show.
I
So
don't
send
even
your
know-
girlfriend if you can't make it.
I don't even know what website this is, but there's like people with fake names that are ranked ahead of Jamar
Who?
Smith. Case Cookus? That's not a name.
No, that's not real. He's not a real prospect.
Jacob Knip? Whatever. That's not a
Is
quarterback.
this Emory?
No. Well, maybe it is. I don't know. Who's that?
Could be Emory's rankings.
All I'm saying is there's no way these people are better than Jamar Smith either. Look, there's a lot of shade being thrown in the direction of Jamar Smith, and I'm not happy with it.
We'll rectify that. Our mission for the rest of draft season is to get Jamar Smith.
First round hype.
Let's at least, I'm going to put the rumor out there. All right, here's the deal, podcast listeners. I'm going to put the rumor that he's a day 2
Day 2.
prospect.
Start.
I'm
Oh,
going
I
to
like
put
it.
this rumor out there, and we are going to track. Okay, so it's on our listeners.
There's a dude that does that. There's a guy with the mock drafts thing. Let's see if we can.
I know,
we can
but
swing
that's,
his
but
curve
that's
up.
like a draft stock
Yes.
thing. I want our listeners to track Jamar Smith hype. We will start it, okay? And you let me know, like, when does Florio start making stuff up? When does Mike Freeman start, saying that he talked to 17 GMs who also agree? When does that stuff start to pick up? Okay, so we'll start the Jamar Smith hype. I want our listeners to track it for us.
Ken just added some new information to the table. Apparently, Jamar got himself suspended,
Oh,
so that's not helping.
from what? Oh, just a game.
Like football.
From football for good?
No, I don't think so.
That was in November.
Yeah, so he's probably fine now.
All right, maybe I'm not going to start the hype. I don't
Well,
want to be.
there may be some red flags.
I don't want to be
associated.
attached to that.
I'm just apparently new information has come to light.
All
There
right.
may be some red flags associated with his play.
Let's wrap it up. Thank you guys for tuning in. We'll be back Thursday. More PFF NFL podcast. Again, live show. We'll have even more details on Thursday and how you guys can get there. And I mean, it's the Tin Roof. Go to the Tin Roof.
Sports betting apparently was the problem. Yeah, that's going to be an issue.
No, that's okay in the NFL.
Oh, the NFL doesn't want any part of that yet.
They just moved to Vegas.
Yeah, but you can't bet on a game. You're
Jamar
like dead
Smith
to
to
the
Vegas. That's the rumor.
Vegas Raiders.
They like him in day 2.
where you can properly bet on games.
Gruden loves him. Day 2, Jamar Smith, Las Vegas Raiders.
Get himself close to the sports book where he could really get in there.
See you guys Thursday.
I would never recommend that.
Raiders. It's going to happen.